Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. My name's Ian Bailey. Um, I read stories, but old stories. As you all know, there is a lot of lies and mistruths online nowadays. So if you get it straight from the horse's mouth, you're on to a winner. So I'm gonna read a couple of stories today. Um, I'll start right now. Could I ask you to please subscribe if you like, or even press the like button? Thank you. Right. So anyway, this story I'm reading now is about when the Sahara was green. A civilization flourished long before the pharaohs. Right, listen. Outside the caves, troopers sat astride their camels. Yawning and sweating beneath the scorching Sahara sun was in the young commander of the patrol, Lieutenant Charles Brennans of the French army, gazed in wonder at hundreds upon hundreds of paintings, vividly sprawled across the warm, dry sandstone walls of the caves. What he had discovered that day in 1933 was an art gallery, 8,000 years old, the record of people long forgotten who inhabited the central Sahara when it was a green and fertile plain. The caves lie in the now desolate plateau of Tassili in Algiers, 800 miles south of Algiers. For nearly 7,000 years they were inhabited by a succession of tribes who left behind them pictures of simple family life, of hunting parties, of strange gods, elephants, herds of cattle, and religious rites. Painted warriors carrying round shields and lances race across the walls in chariots. Preserved in dry desert air were records of several ages, naked hunters with bows and arrows, spear-hurling, round-headed soldiers, peaceful herdsmen wearing aprons and Egyptian-style headgear, and driving cattle with long curved horns. Some of the animals depicted are long extinct, others, the hippo, the rhino, the giraffe and the ostrich, can now only be found in the grassy plains 1,000 or more miles to the south. Deeply stirred by what he saw, Lieutenant Brennan spent most of his tour of duty making sketches of the paintings. The French explorer and ethnologist Henry Lhote was among those who were inspired by the sketches, and he organised an expedition of his own. Lhote, with the backing of French scientific and government agencies, assembled a team of artists and photographers to return to the plateau by 1957. To return to the plateau. By 1957, Lhote's team had taken back to Paris 16,000 square feet of copies and photographs of the paintings. The stories the paintings tell are still being unravelled. The oldest scenes show a dark race, possibly negroid, hunting giraffes, rhinos and elephants with bows and arrows and lances. There are enormous white, half-human figures, possibly gods of the unknown tribes. One, 19 foot high, is half man, half beast, with a head like a turtle and strangely positioned eyes, remarkably like those in paintings by Picasso. The later pictures show far more lifelike figures, rounded, well-muscled legs, decorative tribal scars, belts, anklets and rings are clearly depicted. There are banquet scenes, wedding ceremonies, a woman pounding grain for flour, a hut being built, a family with a pet dog, children asleep under an animal skin blanket, and other domestic scenes. between 5000 and 4000 BC. It seems these people were gradually supplanted by a paler copper-skinned race. These invaders added their own portraits to the gallery, in hunting scenes showing mountain sheep, giraffes and antelopes. Still later paintings from the 3rd millennium BC depict soldiers wearing bell-shaped tunics and riding in chariots. It is thought these may be the people of the sea mentioned in ancient Egyptian records who tried to invade Egypt from Crete or Asia Minor. It is possible that having been defeated by the pharaoh, the invaders retreated to set up homes in the labyrinthine caves of the Tassili Plateau. As the watercourse dried up, the population of Tassili dwindled and little was added to the cave art, but that little speaks volumes. The camel replaces the horse on the walls. Horses could no longer live in the dying land. Then silence. The desert dust blows through the abandoned caves, and for thousands of years, as empires rise and fall in other parts of the world, the brilliant portraits of vanished races stare emptily from the sun-blasted rocks of Tassili and Agyr, until one day a young soldier from a distant land stumbles across them and is moved to tears by what he sees. That's one story. This one's maybe connected, but it may not be. It's about an art gallery of 30,000 years ago, and our little girl's find gives fresh light on prehistoric man. 9-year-old Maria di Sortuola wandered deeper into the cave at Altamira in northern Spain, while her father, an amateur archaeologist, was digging near the entrance. Suddenly, from a side chamber came the young girl's muffled screams. "Bulls! Bulls, Papa! Come quickly!" Her father, Marcelino, dropped his pick and raced into the cavern. His daughter stood there pointing excitedly at the ceiling of the cave. He raised his lantern, and there, painted in brown, reds, yellows and black on the 60-foot by 30-foot ceiling, were pictures of prehistoric bison, magnificent artwork dating back tens of thousands of years. There were 17 of the bison on the ceiling, in lifelike poses, pawing the ground, lying down, bellowing, dying of spear wounds. Around them were pictures of wild boars, a horse, a doe and a wolf. When Sortuola explored further into the network of caves, he found scores of other paintings of animals, many of which were extinct or had disappeared from Western Europe centuries earlier. The year was 1879. At first, Sortuola's finds were dismissed by archaeologists as forgeries, a plot to discredit Darwin's theory of evolution. The archaeologists could not believe that such sensitive work could have been done by a primitive people, thought of as savages and hardly better than apes. But the paintings turned out to be among the greatest discoveries of prehistoric art, dating back between 30,000 and 10,000 BC. In 1902, some 14 years after the Sortuola had died, the archaeologist Abienme Breuil visited the caves and unearthed animal bones bearing engravings almost identical to those on the ceilings. They appeared to be practice sketches. The authenticity of the paintings were no longer in doubt, and the caves were hailed as the Sistine Chapel of prehistoric art. What was also remarkable about the paintings was their state of preservation. Although more than 100 other grottos decorated with old stone age paintings and engravings have been found in northern Spain, the French Pyrenees, the Dordogne, southern Italy and the Urals. Many have faded and deteriorated through the ravages of time and weather, but the Altamira paintings have been made in pitch-black caves discovered only shortly before Sortuola's visit, in which the temperature and humidity had remained constant. Ventilation was good, but not excessive, and the moisture content of the air was sufficient to keep the colours from drying out and scaling off. They had been sealed off for centuries by rockfalls. Similar paintings at Lascaux in southern France suffered more damage in the 15 years they were open to the public through perspiration, body heat and microorganisms introduced by visitors they had in the previous 15,000 than they had in the previous 15,000 years. Children were also instrumental in discovering the other great prehistoric art gallery at Lascaux. There, in 1940, 18-year-old Marcel Ravidat led three friends to a hole made by an uprooted tree that he had spotted a few days earlier. While walking his dog, the youths enlarged the hole, and Marcel climbed down through it to the floor of a cave about 18 foot below. By the light of a few matches, he saw glimpses of beautiful wall paintings. Next day, the boys returned with lanterns and discovered a whole array of horses, bulls, bison, deer, and other creatures. The boys reported their find to the Abbey Bureau, and today the Lascaux caves take their place with those at Altamira as some of the finest examples of primitive art ever discovered. They include a chamber known as the Hall of Bulls, which masterly drawings executed in vivid colours, ebony blacks, brick reds and chrome yellows. In other compartments are hordes of horses and antlered deer heads, all exceptionally lifelike. Like those at Altamira, it is clear that these are not the work of primitive savages, but of sensitive artists, a far cry from the popular concepts of man 15,000 years ago. They were made by the Magdalenians, so called because the first remains of these people were found near the ruins of La Madeleine in the Dordogne district of France. Those at Altamira are believed to have been made by another Old Stone Age group, Cro-Magnons, so called after a group of rocks in the Dordogne where skeletons were found. Both peoples were believed to be food gatherers, subsisting mainly by hunting during the Paleolithic era, Old Stone Age after Neanderthal man. The paintings were made first by engraving the outlines with a pointed piece of flint, then adding colour. The artists had no greens or blues, but may have got black and violet blacks from charcoal or manganese oxide. Brown, red, yellow and orange hues came from iron ore, which was ground to powder between stones, then mixed with animal blood or fat and plant juices. The paint was applied in several ways, by finger brushes made of fur, feathers or the chewed ends of twigs. The artists also used pads of lichen and moss or blue paint through hollow reeds. At Altamira, ochre crayons made with tallow have been found. The paintings were executed with infinite care in dim chambers where daylight could barely penetrate, pointing to the suggestion that the artist had some type of long burning lights. The ceiling paintings also indicate that some form of scaffolding was used. The latest of the paintings was probably completed around 10,000 BC, as the last of the Ice Age glaciers retreated and the old Stone Age peoples moved further north with the vegetation. Many archaeologists think the cave paintings may have been a form of sympathetic magical ritual. Once a beast's likeness was captured on a wall, it could no longer resist the hunter. The early people may also have believed that something of the power and strength of their prey was passed on to them by copying their likeness of the beast, but the paintings may also have been used for instructing young hunters in how to kill. Many show spears thrust into an animal's most vulnerable spots. Now I think that's the end of that one. Now I'm going to leave it at that today now. So I hope you enjoyed that story. I've got plenty more very old stories, all true to form from that time. Yes, they might be over 50 years old, but remember, does a discovery, if a discoverer, if an explorer, i.e. David Livingstone, makes a discovery in Africa like he did, then who writes about that? You get the truth first, don't you? You see? Of course you do. But nowadays you don't, you see. That's why I do this, you see. Because this is true and very, very accurate. Anyway, could I ask you to please like and subscribe? I'll be very grateful. And thank you very much for watching. Thank you.